Hi, welcome to yet another episode of Leadership Story Unscripted Podcast. We have the privilege of having with us Dr. Parul Sharma, who is Senior Director at Fortis Eye Care. And she's had a total experience of more than 26 years with close to 22 years with Max Hospital and also with certain charitable hospitals. So it's a privilege to have you on board on this podcast.
Thank you, Varun.
Thank you. So can we just jump right into the
Sure,
questions?
sure.
Wonderful. What is myopia and why is it relevant in today's time?
See, myopia is something which everybody should know about these days. Myopia means that you are short sighted. Your near vision is okay,
Right.
but your distance vision is blur. And why we should know about it is because it is on a higher incidence in today's world.
Right.
As we are evolving, our world is becoming more for near use. So mobile, screen user, whatever we're doing, we are for near. And we have seen a massive increase in the incidence and prevalence of myopia across the world, especially in Southeast Asia, which has always been there, and now in India also.
Right.
So to give you a sense, like earlier, there were very few people. Now, if you go to a school, you will see a lot of children wearing spectacles, and those spectacle children are usually myopic children.
Right. So what would be the percentages like in country like India? Do you think that's it's becoming a scare?
So I wouldn't use the word scare, but I would say that yes, it's a matter of concern. Parents do not want their children to have spectacles. Now, yes, it's on the increase, as I said, with the usage of screen. To be fair, it is also a genetic predisposition. So it's not just the screen usage. Myopia means the length of your eyeball is more. There are three factors in the eyeball which affect the vision.
Right.
So one is cornea, one is the lens, and other is the length of the eyeball. Now, the way we have no control on our height and skin color, that's a genetic predisposition.
Right.
You're born a certain way. Some people are short, some people have long height. Similarly, in the eyeball, you could have a short eyeball or a long eyeball.
Right.
If you have a longer eyeball, then that can lead to myopia and axial myopia. That your image is not on the retina, it's a blurred image.
Right.
So you're using a minus concave lens to shift the image onto the retina and you start seeing clearly.
Wow.
So one is genetic predisposition.
Yes.
Second is the usage. As we are evolving, the usage is more for near work. So we are accommodating. We have muscles in our eyes which accommodate more to see for near vision. When you're using that more, that also becomes a trigger for myopia. Being indoors, the children are not exposed to sunlight that much. So being indoors, less of outdoor activity, all these form environmental factors increasing the incidence of myopia.
Interesting. Very interesting. Does excessive screen time lead to an increase in eye power?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Now, as I said that myopia, increase in length of the eyeball, is either genetic predisposition, your parents, one of the parents have glasses, you will have it. Or there are certain environmental factors influencing the myopia. So screen usage, being indoors, being less outdoors, comes in one of the environmental factors which affect the incidence of myopia and also the progression of myopia. So we have, if you take 25,000 kids from, say, like a rural background where there is no screen, their children are more outdoors, vis-a-vis our urban cities, kids who are, indoors and at screen, the incidence of myopia in urban cities screen users is much higher. So we know that yes, there is some effect on screen,
Right.
and hence we say that there should be regulated screen time. There should be frequent eye breaks when you're on the screen. So there's a 20-20 rule which says that every 20 minutes, close your eyes for 20 seconds. So now, right now, when my eyes are closed, my accommodating muscles which are required for near work, they are completely relaxed. So a frequent eye break like this, and then the tear film gets time to moisten the eyes, because otherwise on screen we are blinking less.
Yes.
So there is a bit of a dry eye also. So if we take frequent eye breaks
Right.
from the screen, if we regulate the screen time for children, say half an hour, 1 hour a day, send them outdoors evenings. North India is hot in summer months, so at least evening 1 or 2 hours exposure, then at least the incidence and the progression could be a little less.
Does eye redness also cause any problem?
So eye redness per se is a symptom which will happen because of other causes. So
Okay.
eye redness by itself is not a problem.
Right.
But suppose your eyes are drying out, suppose there is little allergy to dust around you, pollution around you, then your eyes will become congested and red.
Right.
So we have to look at the cause, what is causing the redness, and then treat it accordingly. So if somebody has redness, they should not ignore it. They should go to an eye doctor to know what the
To
problem is.
name what the problem is. Great. What food should one consume for sharper and healthier eyes? Is there any hack to sort of reduce the visionary problems that one
Yeah.
faces?
So there's a lot of talk on food these days.
Yes.
Your social media is full of gyan, so-called.
Gajar
But
khai
a
lo.
person, yeah, exactly. So gajar and palak
Right.
is an overrated item.
Oh.
Anything green on your plate. So all green vegetables, all fruits are good for eyes. Why? Because they have vitamin A, carotenoids, xanthine, lutein. These are the antioxidants for the well-being of your eye.
Right.
Food has got nothing, sorry parents, but food has got nothing to do with chashme ka number. So it doesn't affect myopia. If you eat gajar, doesn't mean that you will not get spectacles.
Right.
Moms comes, they are very paranoid
Absolutely.
that, oh, I've been giving good food to my child, well balanced, but why does he have spectacles?
Absolutely.
So we have discussed why we can have spectacles, but for a general well-being of eye, a good balanced diet where you have one green vegetable a day or fruit, little bit of nuts for children like almond, walnut, berries are good. So all the kind of berries like blueberry, cherries, they have antioxidants. So just a well-balanced diet is good for eye maintenance.
Interesting. Next question is, what role does exercise play in maintaining eye health? Are there any specific routines or eye yoga,
No.
templates?
So I think talking about eye, people have created these multiple myths
Yes.
that you have to roll your eyes or you have to do yoga of a certain kind. There is no scientific, clinically based evidence that it helps because our eyes are anyways moving a million times a day. So to answer your question, my answer would be no.
No. Okay. Interesting. We all thought it was always the other eye.
No.
Okay. Is it possible for us to naturally reduce eye power or improve vision without medical intervention?
Naturally decreasing the power, really no. As I said, that myopia is because of the length of the eyeball increasing. Now, sometimes if your corneal curvature or the other optics of the eye balance it out naturally, then you're blessed. But there is no diet, there is no exercise which can really reduce your power. No.
Okay. What exactly is cataract and what are the available treatments for it?
So cataract is Safed Motiabin, your natural lens in the eye. We have the cornea, the glass-like portion in front,
Yeah.
and then there's a natural lens in the eyeball behind it, and the image focuses on retina. So this lens, when it becomes opaque, naturally, that's called cataract.
Cataract.
The lens is clear, like your
Right.
glasses. So the whole light is going inside and you can see clearly.
Absolutely.
But with age, and now there's no age left for anything, you have young people getting cardiac arrest. Similarly, a lot of young people are getting cataracts. And when the vision goes down,
And what would be the age for those young people?
there is no age. On one spectrum, we have congenital cataracts, which means that children can be born with cataracts.
Interesting.
And then you have people in your 20s and 30s now also getting cataract.
That young.
So that, yeah. And the only definitive treatment for cataract is cataract surgery. The lens has to be replaced by an intraocular lens.
Right. Interesting. Is there a cure or a solution for color blindness?
So color blindness is a genetic condition. The cones, the photoreceptors of your retina, which process the color, they are genetically modified. So there is no treatment for color vision. There are some kind of glasses which help you to see the color differentiation better,
Right.
but there is no medical or surgical treatment for that.
Interesting. Sometimes we see thread-like floaters in our vision. What exactly are these?
So floaters, again, I tell people floaters are your friend. They're a part of your eye. So in the eyeball, that eyeball is not an empty structure. There's a gel-like structure in that. So if you naturally have some opacities in that, you will see them outside like floaters.
Okay.
A lot of myopic people who have minus number because the eyeball is longer, their vitreous is liquefied. So they see a lot of floaters. Like I see hundreds of floaters, black spots, threads. Floaters can be ignored. They are your friends who can be ignored.
Right.
But if there is a sudden increase in the floaters, or if you
That's
ever see flashes in the periphery of your vision, then you have to go to a retina specialist to rule out any hole or tear in your retina.
Interesting.
Because the vitreous moves and you can have these floaters.
Yes.
So small floater, one or two here and there are not to worry.
Perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Great. Among LASIK surgery, ICL and cataract lenses, which is the best and safest option?
So LASIK, ICL are all refractive surgeries. Now refractive surgeries means solution to your spectacles. First and foremost, these procedures are done 18 or 19 years plus, because till the time as your body is growing, your eyeball is also changing in shape and size. Once the number becomes stable, we wait for another year, which is at the age of 18, 19. Now, there is no best procedure because it's a very customized approach.
Right.
For example, a -1 to a -7 or -8, if your cornea thickness is enough, then LASIK is a good procedure.
Right.
There are many types of LASIK also these days. Then if your power is higher, say above 8, 9, 10, I've done ICL for 20, 22 powers also.
Wow.
So these are very thin implantable lenses which can be naturally placed on your natural lens
Natural.
as a daycare procedure. So these are customized lenses. So based on your eye structure, based on your corneal thickness, based on your power, these are customized approach to remove the spectacle powers. So these are just different options where the doctor is going to examine your eyes in detail and tell you that this one will work best for you.
Is there any current technology that can enhance your natural vision or make it sharper?
So currently there is nothing which will make it like superhuman or sharper. We are blessed with good 6x6 vision is what the natural person can see at 6 meter. And I think that's a good enough vision. We don't need to have an eagle's eye. An eagle has a separate purpose
Yes.
for superhuman vision. I think in near future there is
Or the
nothing.
Hawkeye vision.
Or the Hawkeye vision. I think we are perfectly fine the way we are.
So there is currently a lot of talk about the AI technology which is increasing the 6x6 vision.
So again, it is not just the artificial intelligence. Now 6x6, as I said, is a good vision. What is a limiting factor? Why are we not better than 6x6? Is because our eyes has some natural aberrations, right? Eye is not a perfect optical system.
Correct.
So what this customized refractive procedures do is remove your natural aberrations also. So your 6x6 becomes a 6x5 or 6x4, like an enhanced contrast vision. So yes, there are technologies and laser which can do that, but your eyes have to be fit to be able to undergo that procedure. Not every eye is fit. So there is a pre-selection criteria to be done that, but we are not promoting that. We are not promising that. It's a byproduct of, technology.
Yeah.
But is it applicable in all eyes? No.
So any new technology that you are aware of that you can inform our users?
In ophthalmology, like any other health specialty, lots. The good part about evolution is adaptation of technology. Now, in every specialty of our body, technology has a big part. In eye, there are a lot of diagnostics which are becoming finer, more sensitive, more specific. So what AI does is takes a lot of data. For example, diabetic retinopathy. Every diabetic needs to get their retina checked once a year, right? Now, if you have a data of say a lakh of people with various stages of diabetes, then you have the retina pictures. We put it into artificial intelligence. It will break us down in saying that what stage, what are the findings that you will get. So your machines become more faster learners, better learners. So they can pick up the diagnosis earlier than a human eye can, for example.
Yeah.
So improvement in diagnostics, improvement in precision in operating. So when you say robotic surgery, there's no robot sitting there, but there are equipments which are using the technology to increase the precision.
Interesting.
So that's where AI comes into use, where technology. So in diagnostic, therapeutic, surgical, then you have something called, for example, bionic eyes, right? Now bionic eyes are not eye transplanted, but these are retinal implants which can increase where your photoreceptors are dead. Suppose a person has had macular degeneration, there is no vision at all. So it will send signals neurally to your optic nerve and brain, and there may be some process happening there to transmit the vision. So it's not a full vision, because in newspapers, let's break the myth. When newspaper comes up with eyeball grabbing, that bionic eye, the patient starts seeing. No, their vision is not going to be like yours and mine.
Right.
But he will start having light perception or some shadow perception, which for a blind person is a big deal, even if he can make out daylight or some broad objects. So those retinal implants are right now, it has gone through stages of animal experimentation. There are some human trials going on, but the future is exciting. So there's lots to be done for. And another thing is artificial corneas. Like right now, the corneal donation is much less. There is less awareness. People are not donating. Cornea blindness is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So we would not need the human donors.
Right.
There would be something called as artificial corneas, which are lab grown, and people who have corneal blindness, we can implant those corneas and give vision.
Interesting.
So there's lots which is happening in ophthalmology.
So there's a lot of talk about the bionic eyes, especially like Elon Musk has spoken about it. Can you elaborate a little bit more about it?
So bionic eyes is the retinal implant that we can use to process in the photoreceptor.
Sure.
The Neuralink right now, it has no direct link, but the technology can be used in, for example, prosthetic eyes and neural adaptation. So this is something which the scientists would be working on or looking at in future.
Right. Very interesting. For animals, we know that they don't
Wear
require-
spectacles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, are they different from humans in any ways?
Yeah. So see, animal eyes, the beauty of human being is that we have to evolve in sync with nature.
Right.
Now, animals' evolution is in their existence outside in nature.
Right.
Their eyes are meant to hunt, to save them from predators, to look at distant objects. They don't have to look at screen for long. So their eyes are made in such a way that their work for distance is satisfied. Near vision is a gross vision for animals.
Right.
So they don't need very fine precision. I'm saying a category. I mean,
Right.
there are many birds and animals and all who have that, but the nature evolution has made them perfect, so
But the
called.
domesticated animals may be a little different than the other.
Yeah. Again, very interesting. Could be. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to screen users?
Yeah. Which is practically all of us now, all the
Yes.
time. So for screen users, see, screen is not going anywhere. We are all stuck with it, either for work purpose or for entertainment purpose. For both, screen is there.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you do to keep your eyes healthy? First and foremost, you need to take frequent eye breaks. There is a 20-20-20 rule which says that every 20 minutes, close your eyes for 20 seconds or look away at a 20 feet. So when I'm closing my eyes for 20 seconds or I'm looking away at a distant object, my accommodating muscles, which make me focus for near, they are getting relaxed. So right now is my 20 seconds eye break, and the tear film gets time to moisten the eyes. So this is a 20-20 rule. Keep your contrast sensitivity and brightness to the level that you are comfortable with.
Right.
If you are young, then you can keep your brightness and contrast a little lower. But if you're 45-50 plus, you have set in presbyopia. People have reading glasses by that time. Accommodation is poor. So you need more brightness and contrast for 50 plus people, especially when you're coming up with the reading power.
Oh, yes.
So 20-20 rule, keeping your brightness and contrast adjusted. Make sure if your eyes are gritty or itchy, and if you're getting eye strain, you can use lubricating eye drops. There are quite a few preservative-free lubricating eye drops that you can use.
Right.
If you do all these things, then you can work on screen for long hours.
Okay. And also, there's this big talk about using the blue protective layer in your screen.
Yeah.
Is that good?
So screen, more than screen, it's the blue block filter
Blue block
lenses and
filter, exactly, that's
spectacles
correct.
that's being talked about. A $1 billion industry.
Exactly.
You will be surprised to know that there is no clinically based human trials
Is it?
to say that blue block filter help. The studies have been done in mice, in experimental lab studies,
Right.
where there's a constant source of light, blue light, which is given onto mice eyes, and then you show the damage that yes, there is blue light damage to the eye.
Right.
But there is no human study to say that one, it affects that much, two, that blue block filter glasses help. The blue block filter glasses are only giving you a little placebo effect, means you feel better with them.
Right.
They might decrease your glare, but the sun has million times more blue spectrum.
Blue spectrum.
So when we are out in the sun, even
Right.
if there's no sun on a cloudy day also,
Yeah.
our eyes are exposed to that blue spectrum and we are pretty okay with it.
Right. Absolutely.
So the industry is not going to be happy with this, but the blue block filter glasses don't have that much of role. If you feel okay with them, sure, you can get them, but they can't be prescribed to say that, oh, you do need blue block filter glasses on the screen, because the screen doesn't have that much of blue wavelength coming onto your eyes to damage it.
Damage. Okay. Interesting. What are polarized sunglasses and how do they protect our eyes?
So polarized glasses are simply to cut off the reflections from the surface. So for example, people who are snow mountaineering, for them polarized glasses are important because the sun reflection from the snow can be very harsh to eyes. In normal circumstances, a 100% UV cut down chances of UVA, UVB is what people need. Polarized glasses are mainly for, adventure sports people or snow trekking,
Okay.
night driving, lot of night driving, polarized glasses help. But for the rest of the community, when they're stepping out, good sunglasses are good enough, yeah.
Okay. Yes. What is the current status and awareness of eye donation in India?
Good that you asked this question, because we want more and more awareness spreading about cornea donation. Less. Certainly, we could do much more because corneal blindness is high. We are always in need of cornea donations. Now, when we say eye donation, it's not the eyeball which is transplanted, neither is it taken. Because people have this fear that it's my near and dear one. Suppose somebody dies. You don't want that eyeball to go away from the eye per se. So, interestingly, it's only the cornea which is taken away. First, for the eye donation, you need to make the call to an eye bank within 6 hours of the death.
Right.
That's a critical time. The eye bank team will come very gently. They will take out only the cornea from the eyeball and close the lid. So there is no disfigurement, and that cornea can be then utilized to give a person vision due to corneal blindness.
Okay. So, as eye is a sensitive organ, do people actually feel scared while going in for an eye surgery?
Actually, a lot of people can feel scared because unlike other surgeries where it is done under general anesthesia,
Right.
so patient goes in the OT, the last memory he has of lights and people, and he's knocked out. And then, he's back to conscious in the room.
Absolutely.
In eye, interestingly, 95% of the surgeries are done under local or topical anesthesia,
Exactly.
which means under drops, or we may give a local injection
Right.
to do even the complex eye surgeries. Only in children we do it under sedation. For adults, most of the surgery are done under local.
Okay.
So, an eye is a small structure, but when you go in an eye operation theater,
Right.
there are big equipments, microscope equipments. It almost looks like you've come into some NASA space laboratory.
Right.
So it can be overwhelming. So what we do is we prep the patient prior that this is what is going to happen. You will see microscope light. We have music running. So I have playlist for my patients.
Okay.
Do you want to listen to devotional songs? Age is no criteria. When I've thought that the person is going to like bhajan in the OT, he will ask for metal rock music.
Oh my God.
So we've had situations like that.
Wow.
But we talk to the patient, we play music for them, we calm them down. Yes, there would be patients who have anxiety or claustrophobia, so we have to give them some anxiolytic before that. It's a process, but the onus is on us to make it as peaceful, calm, painless for them. Yeah.
Interesting. What inspired you to become an eye surgeon?
So eye surgery, I always wanted to do a surgical branch. So when we opt for post-graduation, we decide whether we want to do clinical, paraclinical, medical, surgical.
Right.
So I was very clear that I had to be a surgeon. And out of the branches of surgical branches, I thought giving vision to somebody is most gratifying, has an instant impact. You can combine science and technology. And because it's a small structure,
Right.
the stability of the hand, because I do have a creative bend, an artistic mind, I thought that this is the best organ of the body where I can combine science and art.
Wow.
So the surgery is so fine.
Yes.
Eye surgery requires more finesse than a cardiac surgeon or a neurosurgeon's hand.
Okay.
Because the whole area that you're operating,
plays more.
if you're an anterior segment surgeon, is just 3-4 millimeter.
Right.
The posterior segment, things are as fine like a polythene sheet. So that part really excited me. And of course, the gratification from vision point of view.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. What advice would you give to medical students aspiring to specialize in ophthalmology?
For students who are picking up ophthalmology, I would say congratulations. You've picked up a great branch. For every branch, for that matter, one needs to have a lot of perseverance because medical and surgical is a long journey.
Right.
Don't get hassled by your colleague who's in the corporate world and starts earning a 5-6 digit figure.
Bigger. Yeah.
Because for us, we have to study for 12-14 years.
Yes.
Then you have to specialize even within eye.
Mm.
There are so many specialities. Like I have a team of 14 doctors.
Wow.
So one is a cornea surgeon or a refractive surgeon or a retina surgeon, squint, oculoplasty. So they have to plan their career that it's not only MS post-graduation, but you should also factor in time for some fellowship. So, long journey to train yourself.
Yeah.
And then of course you keep learning. So
Yeah.
till the last
Wonderful.
day of your working,
Yeah.
you should have the approach of being a learner.
Being a keen learner. Wow. Do you advise people wearing contact lenses?
So yes, contact lenses can be worn. One is I don't advise it to very young children. I would say around 14-15 years is a good time to start contact lenses because you should be able to handle your contact lenses well.
Right.
So daily removing them,
There's a lot,
putting them back, cleaning them properly, not sleeping with the lenses.
lot of hygiene.
So exactly, a lot of hygiene needs to be taken care.
Right.
So that is one aspect. Having said that, there is something called as orthokeratology, where if a child has myopia, we give them overnight lenses, which puts pressure on the cornea so that the next day they can see without the lenses. And it has some role in decreasing the progression of myopia.
Right.
So for that exception, we start early.
Right.
But for the rest of the world, yes, when you're using your contact lenses, make sure that you maintain the hygiene and you don't sleep with your lenses overnight
Right.
so that you don't land up with infections.
Okay, great. So the other question that I wanted to ask now, this is something which is your personal journey throughout your career. I'm sure you would have encountered a lot of cases where you had to do, difficult surgeries. Did you have any doubts that, like, oh my God, where have I landed in terms of, the complexities of the surgeries involved?
No, absolutely. So it's not just with me or with ophthalmology eye surgery. Every surgeon, even if it's a cardiac surgeon, neurosurgeon, the human body is so complex
Yes.
that there is not a surgeon ever who will not feel challenged in a OT, who will not have their heartbeat racing,
Right.
who would not be sweating at some point in time. Definitely yes. But the journey is to maintain your calm, go ahead with the challenging situation, and learning helps. Seeing other surgeon helps. So we may be a speaker and go as a faculty in international forums,
Right.
but every single platform that we go to, or even now, like every year I go to one OT to observe senior people, we're always learning. So that kind of helps you to face those challenging situations.
Interesting. Okay. On the personal side, Dr. Parul, can you touch a little bit about who, all those aspiring youth who are actually going to take up this as a profession? Anything that you would advise them and that you would want to talk to them about?
So as I was saying earlier, that medical journey is a long and a grueling one.
Exactly.
How do you not burn out, right? You talk about this burnout in corporate world.
Exactly.
Sorry and pardon me for saying that, but that's nothing compared to the stress of a doctor. Because you're dealing with not targets or machines or computers, you're dealing with human bodies and lives, right? So the key is to have a good work-life balance throughout. While you're studying, while you're getting trained, while you start as a young surgeon, or if you are a very senior surgeon. At every point in time, you need to have a good work-life balance, which means that there should be some hobbies which relaxes you. You should know to take pauses in between. If you've had a very tough 1 month, just take a break and go away for a weekend. Follow your hobby.
Right.
Have a good set of friends that you can, unwind with. Look at things a little objectively, intermittently, because we get so involved in what we are doing.
Right.
Because most doctors that I know are very passionate about what they do. So sometimes you have to just take a step back,
Right.
look at what you're doing objectively. So find those pocket of zens
Right.
to create that work-life balance, and then come back with rejuvenated energy.
Interesting. And on the personal front, Do you also think of anything that helps you with the work-life balance?
So for me, like yoga is my go-to. Or so I have a person coming and I start my day at least 3 or 4 days a week with yoga. And during COVID times, I started Kathak, and that's continuing. So I go to an academy post work,
Lovely.
twice or thrice a week at night. I've had some stage performances with
Oh.
my group academy. So that keeps me fit. That keeps my brain alive. It
Lovely.
gives me a break. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Dr. Parul, it has been a pleasure talking to you and learning so many wonderful things. And I've actually learned so much today during this podcast as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And wish you a good journey ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you.